Not long is left, folks, in this transfer window, and in today's video we are here to round up all of the recent deals which have gone through in the last week or so and chat over the recent transfer speculation which is going around the Championship. I'm sure that even more stuff is going to continue to ramp up over this next week or so as we do edge closer and closer towards that deadline. But as always, if you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, do get involved in the comments down below. Any other rumours that you've seen going around that we don't mention in today's video, make sure to get down there. But without any further ado, let's first of all hop into some completed deals. We saw Middlesbrough complete a deal for American forward Matthew Hoppe. He got a little bit of action in midweek off the bench and obviously goes to strengthen that Middlesbrough forward line. Not the only bit of business that they're expected to do in that position, but we'll speak on that later in the video. We've already seen Hamza Chowdhury in a Watford shirt as well. They got that deal over the line on a season-long loan, fended off a little bit of competition from some other Championship clubs for this one as well. We saw Burnley completing a deal for Southampton's Nathan Tella on a season-long loan. We've already seen him have a couple of appearances off the bench for Burnley so far this season in the Championship. We saw Millwall completing a deal for German striker Andreas Volkshammer. He goes on to add a little bit more competition and depth into their forward line. He signed from Union Berlin in the Bundesliga. We saw Kane Kessler-Hayden completing his loan move over to Huddersfield for the season from Aston Villa. Really good pickup this one. A little bit envious as a Preston fan. I would have liked to have seen us in the market for him. But yeah, I think Huddersfield have got their hands on a really good and promising wing back for the season here. And we saw Wigan Athletic completing the season-long loan signing of Ashley Fletcher. He'll look to add a little bit more firepower into that Wigan side. An interesting player, obviously. His last few moves haven't really worked out for him in the MLS. 7 appearances, no goals. For Watford, didn't really get much of a chance there either. And towards the end at Middlesbrough, I think they were more than happy to sort of ship him on. He did have one sort of real purple patch at Middlesbrough though, where he looked like a real top Championship striker, but consistency, it's just not quite happened for him up until this point in his career. Will Wigan be the side to go ahead and unlock that potential? Time will tell. We saw Alex Mowatt completing his loan move over to Middlesbrough. Obviously got to see him make his debut for them the other night as well. I honestly think that this could be a move which ends up suiting him for this season. A manager like Chris Wilder, obviously second half of last season with West Brom didn't quite go to plan. Under a manager like Wilder, the system he'll be playing in, the role he'll be playing in that team, yeah, I think Middlesbrough have got the potential to go ahead and unlock Mowatt and sort of showcase what he can do again. The big departure that we saw from the Championship recently was Emmanuel Dennis, who has completed his move over to Nottingham Forest for a fee in the region of £20 million. It was probably always going to be optimistic thinking that he would be sticking around in the Championship. I think the fact that he played, on the opening day, we all thought, oh my god, if Watford keep this front three together, this could be, really deadly throughout the season. But at the end of the day, they've got a good fee for him and they've got his replacement in through the door. His replacement, of course, being Keenan Davis. Really good signing, this one. Honestly, Keenan Davis I really flipped my opinion on him last season, I have to admit. Up until that Nottingham Forest loan spell, I wasn't fully convinced on his overall skill set. I thought that he'd probably reach a cap in terms of his level and how good and how influential he'd actually be for a side like Watford. But that last season at Forest, while he wasn't necessarily prolific in front of goal, his overall game I think will add a lot to this Watford side this season. We saw QPR complete the loan signing of Ethan Laird. He's coming over on a season-long loan from Manchester United. Another one from a Preston fan's perspective that I'm really envious that they managed to get this one over the line. Preston were also heavily linked, but I think that QPR have got a tremendous right wing back in for this season. Someone who really showcased his ability, I thought, the first half of last season at Swansea. Yeah, no doubts this one's going to be a hit. We saw Stoke complete the season-long loan signing of Tariq Fosu. He's coming over from Brentford. Always quite like the look of Tariq Fosu. Never quite fully established himself within that Brentford side. Obviously had plenty of competition, and this Stoke move is intriguing to me. I don't think he's the most obvious fit into this Michael O'Neill system. I think they've utilised him as a wing back on his debut. I know he can play that position, but I think he's best utilised further up the pitch really. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on there this year. But I must say, I am particularly interested to see how Liam Delap gets on this season in the Championship. Now out on loan at Stoke City, obviously his record in under-21 football, you know, and youth academy football is absolutely off the charts for Manchester City in terms of his goal scoring return. First-time loans out to the EFL are, you know, fairly hit and miss in terms of how they can go, but in terms of a potential ceiling and how good this could go for him this season, yes, Stoke could have a serious player on their hands for this one. Obviously with his dad's connection there as well, yeah, I'm excited to see how he gets on. And we had some big news coming from Hull City, and that's that Jacob Greaves has committed his future to the club and signed a new deal with them. There was a little bit of speculation over his future. Obviously, Middlesbrough, one club who very much put their hat in the ring for Jacob Greaves, but this is an absolutely massive one for Hull going forward. Almost as big of a statement as some of the players who they've signed throughout this window, especially if they were to lose, you know, both Greaves and Lewis Potter in the same window. That could have been quite detrimental, but in terms of a player to build this team around and that epitomises the spine of this new squad, yeah, Jacob Greaves is absolutely all that. One of the best centre-halves in the Championship, and still at such a young age where he can go on and develop into a real top player. But guys, there we have it. Those are some of the recently completed deals which have gone through in the Championship. Any that we've missed off, do let me know about them in the comments down below. Without any further ado though, let's hop into some transfer rumours. And we'll start with a little bit of news which is close to home to me, because Emil Riis has been heavily linked with the move to Middlesbrough. This even prompting North End to come out on Twitter and put out a little bit of a statement saying that we've not had any acceptable bids coming in for any of our players as of right now. But I think that pretty much sums it up and confirms that there is concrete interest here from Middlesbrough in Emil Riis. And I am a little bit surprised that we've got to this stage in the window, and up until this point we hadn't really had any murmurings for Emil Riis. Ultimately a player who scored 21 goals in all competitions last season, was absolutely fantastic, undoubtedly will start to get that attention. What's important here from Preston's point of view for me is that we don't sell ourselves short in this one and accept, you know, the first offer or so that comes in for Emil Riis. Ultimately, he's only 24 years old, he's contracted with North End until 2025, recently signed a new contract extension, and on top of that we know that Middlesbrough aren't exactly short of cash at the moment with the sales that they've made in this window as well. Riis is somewhat of an opinion splitter amongst the North End fan base because of the nature of his game. Don't get me wrong, he's not the final article and he is a little bit rough around the edges at times. You know, he will take a dodgy touch and give the ball away here every now and again and could probably still work on his hold-up play. But when it comes to being wildly unpredictable in the final third, in terms of having a ferocious shot and being able to score from the most unlikely and tightest of angles, he is absolute gold dust, and for that you need to pay a premium. I think if I, you know, was in North End's position, I'd be demanding at least 10 million. I think anything short of that, and I don't think we should be selling him. I think we should be keeping him because he will be once again this season our main source of goals. Now, he's not started the last couple of Championship matches we've had, that as a result of us switching our system a little bit. We've been playing one up top with sort of two number 10s going off that, but I'm in no doubt that if he does stay this season, he will be our main man once again, with Troy Parrott supporting him, and I would expect him to be, you know, up and around that sort of 15 goal plus mark. So yeah, the ball is very much in Middlesbrough's court here, whether they will go in for that big bid which will take it for Preston to sell, and if it does come to that, I mean, we've then got a job on our hands of going ahead and replacing him late in the window as well, which isn't ideal from our perspective. And it appears as if Crystal Palace are the latest Premier League club to be interested in the move for Bristol City's Antonin Semenyo. Now, up until this point of the season, we've not seen him play any football so far for Bristol City in this campaign due to him still recovering from that injury last time around. However, there's no doubt that Bristol City have a star on their hands, and earlier in this transfer window they've already gone ahead and knocked back quite a sizable transfer fee from an unnamed Premier League club at that time. Palace are interested, and generally speaking, looking at Palace's track record of investing into young and upcoming players in the EFL, certainly players who have got a lot of flair like Semenyo, he does perfectly fit that billing in terms of what they've been after. Semenyo last season in the Championship, 8 goals, 12 assists, absolutely lightning on the counter-attack and through breaks. Has that ability to play through the middle or off one of the flanks as well, and I can see why a club like Crystal Palace would be interested in him. Bristol City, though, more than keen to keep hold of him, and time will tell. This one very much depends on how much Crystal Palace are willing to go up to. And Watford's Joao Pedro is a wanted man at this point in time, with Newcastle set to go back in for a new and improved offer for the Watford man. Initially, they've had an offer of around about 20 million knocked back, which had add-ons of around about 3 million involved in that package as well. From Watford's perspective, they see Joao Pedro as their most valuable and saleable asset, and it's understandable to see why. I certainly think in terms of potential and where the player is currently at, and the current climate of how much these types of players are going for, I totally get it from Watford's perspective that they're looking for absolutely everything possible out of this deal, particularly with Newcastle in the market for him, and we all know how much money they have at this point in time. We've already seen to Rob Edwards' system this season just how influential a player like Joao Pedro would actually be, and to go ahead and replace that, I think Watford would be really hard pressed to do, even if they were going to get, 30 million plus out of him this window. To go ahead and get that replacement in the Championship towards the end of the window, I think it's going to be really tough to go ahead and replace that quality, because, yeah, for me, he is one of the most talented players at their disposal. And we were speaking about Crystal Palace before in contention for Semenyo. Well, they're also in the market for Ismaila Sarr of Watford as well. It would be a little bit of a shame, I'll say, that, this front three that Watford started the season with is going to be broken up by the end of this transfer window, because, I would have loved to have seen that front three over the course of a full season in the Championship. I think they could have been a hell of a lot of fun, but the current money that's being spoken about, if Watford's valuations of these players are met, like it already has been with Emmanuel Dennis, then ultimately they will be making those moves to the Premier League. And I think it probably always was a little bit, far-fetched to think that all of them would be sticking around, but the fact that all three could leave does leave Watford in somewhat of a vulnerable position in terms of them needing to go out and replace that quality, and like we were mentioning before, late on into the window in the Championship. It's not always easy and quite as straightforward as some people may think. And it's looking like Rodrigo Muniz will be a Middlesbrough player after all. This one had been long rumoured throughout this transfer window, and it seems as if Borough have landed their target. Chris Waldo was after a couple more additions in the striker department. Seems as if one will be a loan deal, the other they're looking to chase on a permanent basis. But yeah, this one has been long rumoured, dates back to before Fulham actually signed him. There was a bit of a tug of war between Fulham and Middlesbrough for the Brazilian forward, and of the game time we saw him get in the Championship last time around, a really promising striker, only 21 years old. His goals to minutes ratio was quite promising last season, so now that he'll get more first team opportunities at Borough, I'm excited to see how he gets on. West Brom are said to be looking into Reading striker Lucas João. Now this one would be quite the interesting transfer. Earlier on in the window there was quite a bit of speculation surrounding Lucas João. He's obviously now entering that final year of his contract at Reading, but since that moment the interest seemed to have died down, as Reading was so keen to go ahead and keep hold of the player. Now from Reading's perspective, we've spoken about this one before. I think it would make sense to go ahead and keep him, and even they do run the risk of losing him on a free at the end of the season. What he will give to them, the value and the goals he'll bring to that Reading side this season, I think are absolutely undeniable. For me, he's still one of the best strikers in the Championship. The question is, can you get him on the pitch consistently enough to go ahead and bring those goals? We saw him getting off the mark the other night as well, as he came on off the bench. From West Brom's perspective, I get this one. Daryl Dike's out with that injury. They're still looking light up front and missing chances. Someone like Lucas João would go ahead and solve that, but Reading would be desperate to keep hold of him. And perhaps as a bit of a cheaper alternative, they could go in for Lewis Grabban, who I still think can, more than cut it at Championship level. Still chipped in with Nottingham Forest last season, and consistently so had a really good goals to game ratio throughout his time at Nottingham Forest. There will be quite a few Championship clubs, I'd imagine, that will be throwing their hat in the ring for Lewis Grabban. I think Rotherham earlier were one side who had been linked to him, but he's said to be weighing up his options as things stand. The amount of Championship clubs who need a striker heading into deadline day, Lewis Grabban's agent's going to be incredibly busy between now and then. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and do make sure to subscribe for some regular Championship content. Make sure to check out yesterday's predictions video. If you've not gone ahead and ready, make sure to get your predictions in there. But without any further ado, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.